The apartment.
I grew up in a genuinely haunted house. The kind of place that teaches you early what fear is supposed to feel like. Shadows moving where they shouldn't. Footsteps with no source. Voices drifting through rooms that were empty seconds before. After a childhood like that, the paranormal stopped being shocking. I've seen things, I've heard things. Startle me? Sure. Scare me? Not easily. But there was one night, one single moment, that broke that confidence completely. About 11 years ago, I lived in a small apartment complex. It was quiet, unremarkable, almost boring. The worst thing about the place was the wolf spiders, huge, aggressive things that looked like they crawled straight out of a nightmare. Other than that, nothing ever felt off. No strange vibes, no unexplained sounds, no sense of being watched. Until the weekend, the man across the hall threw a party. He was an older guy, kept mostly to himself. That weekend, though, music thumped through the walls late into the night. Laughter, shouting, doors slamming. At some point, one of the men there, his brother, I later learned, drank himself to death. Alcohol poisoning. The worst part wasn't even the death. It was the waiting. His body lay there for over 12 hours. People thought he was just passed out, sleeping it off on the floor. No one checked. No one noticed. By the time they realized something was wrong, it was far too late. After that, things changed. But subtly at first. Every now and then I'd hear something strange. A noise that didn't quite make sense. A soft thud, like something shifting its weight. A faint scrape in the hallway outside my door. Nothing dramatic enough to send me running, just enough to make me pause and listen. I told myself it was the building settling. Pipes, neighbors, normal apartment sounds. Then came the night that still makes my skin crawl. I was in bed with my toddler, lying beside her while she drifted toward sleep. The bathroom light was on, casting a soft glow through the doorway and across the bedroom floor. I remember watching that light absent-mindedly, listening to her breathing slow, and then the light disappeared. Not gradually, instantly. Something blocked it completely. I jerked my head up off the pillow, heart slamming into my ribs, and looked toward the doorway. There was something standing there. It wasn't solid. Not fully. A black mass, dense and wrong, loosely shaped like a person, but without features. No face. No eyes. Just a tall, unmoving silhouette that swallowed the light behind it. It felt thick, like it was pressing into the room rather than occupying it. The air changed. My entire body started to tingle like static crawling under my skin. Every instinct screamed at me not to move, not to breathe. I squeezed my eyes shut for a split second, terrified of what I was looking at. Terrified it might be a real person who had broken in, and somehow even more terrified that it wasn't. I counted one heartbeat, then another. When I opened my eyes again, the doorway was empty. The light spilled back across the floor like nothing had happened. I didn't hesitate. I slid out of bed as quietly as I could, keeping my child behind me, grabbed my shotgun, loaded a couple of shells, and cleared the apartment. Every room, every corner, closets, under beds, bathroom, kitchen. Nothing. The front door still had both locks secured. The chain was still latched. Every window was closed and locked. There was no sign of forced entry. No place for someone or something to have gone. Yet I knew what I had seen. After that night, the noises continued. Sometimes heavier, sometimes closer. I'd hear movement outside my bedroom door when no one was there. Faint sounds in the early hours of the morning, right when the world is at its quietest. But whatever had stood in that doorway never showed itself again, almost like it didn't need to. I stayed until my lease was up, counting the days. When I finally moved out a couple of months later, the relief was overwhelming. But it never fully left me, because I still don't believe it was passing through. I think it noticed me. And for one brief moment, it wanted me to notice it too.
The Mimic. I live deep in the country, far enough away from town that the nights feel heavier somehow, quieter but not peaceful. My house sits alone at the end of a narrow lane, surrounded by open fields that flood in winter and a stretch of marshland everyone around here simply calls the swamp. It doesn't have a proper name. It never needed one. People just know not to go near it. The swamp sits behind a thin line of warped trees, their roots clawing up out of the earth like something trying to pull itself free. Even in daylight, the place feels wrong. The air there is thick and damp, and the ground shifts beneath your feet, sucking and dragging as though it's deciding whether to let you pass. I grew up here. I learned early where not to step. That evening, I took my dog out just before dark, like I always did. The sky was low and gray, the last of the light bleeding out behind thick cloud. The fields were already losing their shape, sinking into shadow. My dog walked close to my leg, calm and steady, his nose working the air. He knew this land as well as I did. As we approached the path that skirts the swamp, everything stopped. The birds fell silent first. Then the wind dropped away completely. Even the distant sounds of livestock vanished, leaving behind a silence so complete it made me slow my pace without meaning to. My dog stopped walking altogether. That was when I heard my mother's voice. Johnny. It came from the swamp. At first, I thought it was my imagination, a memory stirred by the quiet, or the wind playing tricks. But then the voice spoke again, clearer this time, drifting out from between the reeds and stagnant water. Johnny love, I need you. My stomach tightened. The voice was perfect, not an imitation, not distorted. It sounded exactly like her, warm, familiar, carrying the same gentle tone she'd used my whole life. The way she spoke my name made my chest ache. She said she was stuck. She said she'd slipped. She said it was cold where she was. Then she asked me to come closer. I stood there, staring into the dark water, my mind struggling to catch up with what my ears were telling me. My mother was supposed to be at home. I left her there less than an hour earlier, and yet every word sounded real, urgent, loving. My dog growled. It was low and deep, nothing like the playful noises he usually made. The hair along his spine rose sharply as he stared into the swamp, teeth bared. His body leaned back, pulling against the lead, every instinct telling him to get away. The voice called again. This time, it was closer. Johnny, please, just come here. Something in the way she said it made my skin crawl. The words were right, but the timing wasn't. The pauses were wrong, as if whatever was speaking had learned how to sound human, but not how to be one. My dog barked, sharp, frantic, and lunged backward. That broke whatever hold the voice had on me. I turned and ran. My boots pounded the path as I dragged my dog with me, heart hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. Behind me, the voice followed for a few steps, stretching unnaturally, repeating my name over and over, growing thinner and more distorted with each word. Then it stopped, not faded, not drifted away. Stopped. The The silence that followed was worse than the voice itself. I didn't slow down until I reached my house. I burst through the door, breath ragged, hands shaking, half expecting to see mud on the floor or water dripping from the walls. But everything was normal. The lights were on. The television murmured quietly in the corner. My mother sat in her chair, exactly where she always sat, alive and unharmed. She looked up at me and asked why I looked so pale. I didn't tell her what I'd heard. That night, I barely slept. Every time the house creaked, I was sure I heard her voice again, calling softly from somewhere outside. At one point, my dog sat upright in the darkness, growling at the back door, hackles raised, eyes fixed on nothing I could see. In the days that followed, I learned things I wish I hadn't. I spoke to an old farmer who lived here longer than anyone else. He told me people had gone missing near the swamp over the years. Not many, just enough. Always alone, always following something familiar. A voice, a shape, a promise of help. He said the swamp doesn't take you by force. It invites you. I still live in the country. I still walk my dog. But only during the day now, and never near the marsh. Sometimes, when the wind is right, I swear I can hear my name carried faintly across the fields. Soft, patient, waiting. And I know one thing for certain. Whatever lives in that swamp knows my voice. It knows my memories. And it knows exactly how to call me home.